I want to get into a man named Albert Pike, who most of you know by now who do research. But before I get into Albert Pike, I want to go back a little bit further and get into, well, not too far further. I want to get into the whole Lincoln assassination. And I know you're going to say, what the hell does this have to do with Islam? But trust me, bear with me for a second. Now we know John Wilkes Booth. John Wilkes Booth was a member of the Knights of the Golden Circle, just like Albert Pike. And also like Albert Pike, he was a Scottish Rite Freemason. Now, anybody who studies the Lincoln assassination knows that almost everybody in the Lincoln administration wanted Lincoln dead. They wanted him gone. And a lot of them was complicit in his assassination and helped with the cover up. Now, General Lafayette Baker, he was basically summoned to Washington to help out with the whole Lincoln assassination, the case. And within like 2 days of him being there, he already arrested 4 people and had a lead on Wilkes Booth and his accomplice. Now remember, they had supposedly tracked down Wilkes Booth and his accomplice, David Harold, to a barn. And Harold basically surrendered and they took him away, but Wilkes Booth put up a fight, supposedly didn't want to go quietly, and he was shot and killed by Sergeant Thomas Corbett, nicknamed Boston Corbett. And we know they took Harold away, and he was later hanged along with 3 other accomplices for being complicit in the assassination of Lincoln. These are actual pictures from the hanging, by the way. Now we know that General Baker made sure it was a military tribunal so he could control exactly how the trial went and what questions and everything would be answered, because if they had a regular trial, like a regular civilian trial, because these dudes was tried as, military people. Some of them was in the military. So he wanted to make sure they had a military tribunal so he can control it. So everybody else who was in on the whole thing, it wouldn't come out in trial. But, they was assassinated, they was, all hanged and killed. And General Baker basically received a large part of that $100,000 reward for capturing, those people. Now, the Secretary of War, the War Secretary, Edward Stanton, he, who a lot of people believe was also complicit in Lincoln's assassination, he hid the keys to where Booth's body was supposedly stored. He didn't allow anybody access to it, and he also hid 18 pages of Wilkes Booth's diary. Now remember, his diary was supposed to be coded, but he had in there that the nation was controlled by a group of Scottish Rite Freemasons who work for the British Crown. Now the weird thing is, later they also found a diary of General Lafayette Baker, same dude who supposedly caught Booth and had the 4 men hanged. They found his diary. It also was coded, but it also said the same thing, that the nation is controlled by a group of Scottish Rite Freemasons and they work for the British Crown. And his diary was actually written inside of a British military journal. So now, many believe that Albert Pike was also, a part of the whole Lincoln assassination. After the Civil War, he was charged with treason. He was charged with treason for getting the Indians to attack the North, to attack Union soldiers. Now, remember, Albert Pike was a Confederate general. Now, a lot of people don't know he was also a lawyer. He actually helped a lot of Indians get back their land or beat a lot of cases that was going against them, from the North. Remember, the North was always trying to take Indian land, and he helped them out with a lot of cases. Now, he basically fled to Canada when he was charged with treason until Andrew Johnson became president. One of the first things that Andrew Johnson did when he became president was to give Albert Pike a pardon for his war crimes. He pardoned him, gave him a full pardon. So now, what does this have to do with Islam? Of course, as I said, we're going to get into that. It's all going to make sense. So now let's look at it. We have Wilkes Booth, who was a Scottish Rite Freemason, who put in his diary that America, the nation, was being controlled by Scottish Rite Freemasons who worked for the British Crown. We have General Lafayette Baker saying exactly the same thing in his diary that just so happens to be in a British military journal. You also have Albert Pike, who was a Confederate general, and co-founder, Chief Judicial Officer, and Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. He co-founded the KKK. He was also a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Sovereign Grand Commander of Freemasonry and considered the highest ranking Freemason of all time. Pike died in 1891. He was buried in Oak Hill Cemetery in Washington, D.C. until 1911 when the House of the Temple was built in Washington and they moved his crypt there. Now, the House of the Temple has a huge atrium to the Supreme Council of 33rd degrees. To the right of the atrium is a staircase where you can see a statue of Albert Pike. Those stairs lead up to the temple for the 33rd degree Freemasons. Underneath those stairs is supposed to be the crypt of Albert Pike. Now, to the left of the atrium is a memorial dedicated to Albert Pike. Now, the House of the Temple is the headquarters for Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Let me say that again. The House of the Temple is the headquarters for Scottish Rite Freemasonry. It is exactly 13 blocks due north of the White House, and it would be the capstone on the pyramid of the Masonic layout of Washington, D.C. So now, what does that tell you? Do you understand what's going on? Do you see what's going on? Now, forget what Booth said about Scottish Rite Freemasonry's running America. The same thing that Baker said, Lafayette Baker wrote, Scottish Rite Freemasons running America. It's right there in front of you. All of the mystery, all of the people talking all this supposedly conspiracy theories about the Illuminati, Freemasonry, them running everything, and it's right in front of your face. There it is, plain as day. You have a whole temple. I mean, first of all, just get it out your head that this is not going on. This is happening. We play with this stuff and we speculate that, well, maybe the Masons run stuff or maybe they don't. It's here. What do you think all this stuff is about, the whole Masonic layout? You think they did that because they in some kind of, club? People is so passive, and we seeing stuff that's right in front of our face, and it's telling us exactly what's going on and what these people are about, and everybody just want to ignore it. How can you go and lobby and complain and protest about anything in Washington when you see that whole Masonic layout and everything that's supposed to come with that? How can they, and you need to understand, a lot of your senators, a lot of your congressmen, a lot of your council members, a lot of these people are members of this whole Scottish Rite Freemasonry, and you can go down there and you sit out there and wait and you see who comes out of there, and it's going to surprise you. But understand, how can you have the tomb, the crypt of a man who was a Confederate general, who also was accused, he was never tried, but he was accused and suspected of being involved in the assassination of an American president? How can you have that right there in Washington? I mean, what is that place? What is it? Like, we speculate and we play with this stuff, but when it's right in front of your face, everybody want to just ignore it like it don't exist. People look at that Masonic layout of Washington and they just ignore it. And, everybody running around talking about election and this and that. I mean, this stuff has been here for centuries. And nobody wants to take it seriously after everything that's going on, after all the information that's put out, after America has basically been taken over by this whole banking system, and we look at this stuff and nobody wants to accept it when it's right there. Now, I'm saying all this because there is a Masonic headquarters of Freemasonry, Scottish Rite Freemasonry, that is represented as a capstone for this whole government, for this whole organization, represented as the capstone on this pyramid for our government. And when you look on the back of $1, you have the pyramid with the capstone, the all-seeing eye. Around that pyramid spells out Annuit Coeptis, Noro Ordo Seclorum, and when you put a star over it, it spells out Mason. Now, the whole thing means favor our undertaking, new order of the age. What is all that? What is it? What's going on? And we see this shit every fucking day, and nobody wants to just, what can you do? You're just one person, what can you do? I know that's how a lot of people feel, what can I do? And that's how they want us to feel. But it's amazing to me that as us as a whole, as a collective, didn't stomp this out yet. And it's because we are racially divided and we are religiously divided, and they are conquering us because they are the one who has divided us. And it's crazy when you get into it. And one of the things I'm into deeply is the whole American history, American politics and all that. But that right there, it's so much more deeper than that. But I want to try to stick on this whole Islam thing because that's the topic. But it's a lot deeper. And if you've seen some of my videos, I kind of get into it more. Okay, so it's a Masonic lodge, 13 blocks from the White House, symbolizing a capstone on the pyramid of the Masonic layout of Washington, with the crypt of Albert Pike, a very high-ranking Freemason, Scottish Rite Freemason, and Grand Wizard of the KKK, co-founder of the KKK, and also a Confederate general who used the Indians to attack Union soldiers. I mean, it just don't get no weirder than having this dude here and having it being attached to Freemasonry and Masonry, and having Mason on our dollar coated with the pyramid and capstone. It's weird. This dude wrote a book called Morals and Dogma, where he's basically saying that Lucifer is the light bearer and the light of Freemasonry that all Masons, ascribe to. This dude is who these Masons look up to. And we know that presidents and we know that congressmen, they walk around with that Masonic pen. You go down Washington. We know that a lot of these people are Masons. So it makes the whole thing weird, and it makes the validity of Wilkes Booth's diary and Lafayette's diary valid. I mean, it makes you really question all that for anybody who may not understand, what's going on. If you don't believe it, then when you see all this, you have to be like, yeah, the shit is real. Now, we know Albert Pike. Well, a lot of people probably don't know. Pike also has a statue in Judiciary Square in Washington, D.C., where a lot of people lobbied to get it removed. A lot of black people tried to get it removed, but the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, basically saved it. And, if you know anything about that league, it's supposed to be controlled by Britain, to tell you the truth. But they saved Pike's statue. He is the only Confederate officer to have a statue in Washington, D.C. Wow. What did he do to deserve that? So even if you don't want to get into that part of it that I'm saying, the whole Masonic stuff, I mean, some of this stuff is like, come on. KKK was founded in 1866. That's the year after slavery ended, by 6 Confederate officers, including Albert Pike and Nathan Bedford Forrest. A lot of you know who he is. He was also a general and a Freemason. So now, what is the KKK based on? Where does it come from? It comes from the Knights Templar, and that's easy to see. Now, the Knights Templar used to be the Order of the Temple, or the Knights of the Temple of Solomon. Now, Pike even admits in his book that Freemasonry begins or started with or came from the Knights Templar, and I would think he means the Scottish Rite Freemasonry. We know it all comes from Kemet when you get into it. Now, anybody who studies Freemasonry understands that they claim to be founded on the building of the Temple of Solomon. So you can connect all this stuff together. We're talking about the Knights Templars, the KKK, Masonry. All this stuff comes together. So understand, Ku Klux is Greek for golden circle. And as I said, Albert Pike, Wilkes Booth was both members of the Order of the Golden Circle, or the Knights of the Golden Circle. So for anybody who says that Pike had nothing to do with the founding of the KKK, it's right in the very name that he had his hand in it, Ku Klux. Klan goes to, the Scottish term. Klan is a Scottish term. Every black person is familiar with the burning cross of the KKK. We all know about it, that burning cross. That is called the Cran Terra. It is Scottish dialect for burning cross. It's what the Scottish clans use to summon their clansmen to arms. All this stuff connects together. Now, I've shown you how it connects. I've shown you that it goes back to Freemasonry. I've shown you that the name goes back to a whole secret society that Pike was in. We know that the Muslims was a part of the Knights Templar. All this stuff is connected. Now, you can't get into the Knights Templar without the Pope. The Pope was the one who sanctioned it. Pope Honorius sanctioned the Knights Templar and gave them their code of conduct. So it wouldn't be no Muslims allowed in it unless he sanctioned it and allowed them to be in there.